I'm aware of it, I'm like, okay, no, that's not for me, right? That's not, I don't need that void to be filled anymore, because I fill it myself, right? But that's where, this is the pure self. If it was the ego, I would still need that other person to make me feel better, but I don't need that other person to make me feel better. And that's what the whole point is, to recognize that within yourself, because this is not just, this is all possible for everybody. It just takes, you have to put a mirror in front of your, not even a mirror, you got to put a mirror with a magnifying glass and another, and a telescope that goes right, you got to be willing to put it in front of you and observe it, which is not easy. I'm not going to lie, there's like cute little cartoons on the book to make it light and fluffy, and the cartoons are actually really funny and good, but the process is intense, and I encourage you to try it, although, if you go down, that's great. I know it sounds horrible, but you got to go down first to come back up. You got to...
Would you say you were in a depression?
Oh, absolutely. And I had never been in depression before, so I was like, what's going on? I didn't understand what a depression was. I thought, bless you. I was like, I don't understand why people are in depression. How are people depressed? And then I actually felt it, and I was like, oh, this sucks. I was in a situational depression. I mean, I even threw myself on the floor crying hysterically. Still observing myself while I was doing this, though. And that's what helped me, because when you're observing, you're in the pure self. Even though emotionally, emotions will come through you, right? Like, it's not like, now I will become a robot, I am pure self, there is nothing going on. No, emotions will come through, joy, sadness, anger, whatever, but you'll be able to not feel it as much. It's going to just process and go out, instead of trap itself into places, and then you're carrying this load of crap that is in the past. So yeah, I was definitely in a depression. But that's, what allowed me. Like, for me, that was my rock bottom. I hope. I don't know if there's another one around the corner. But that's for me, it felt like the rock bottom.
But unfortunately, that's a situation where that draws you experiencing more or less the same emotions as that, the depression. That's what brings you into true observation of yourself. You sometimes have to be brought to your knees. Not that you recommend it to anybody, but that's...
But if you need to go to your knees to then come out of it, I would say absolutely. Do it. Only because the opposite is so much more beautiful and powerful. This is the thing, is I want everybody to be happy, and I don't want anybody to feel pain, but at the same time, if that pain is going to make you surpass and grow and be content and happy, then do it. Jump in. Like, for me, the whole thing with my divorce was, when I got divorced, I said to myself, that's it. I don't want to suffer anymore. What do I got to do to stop suffering? And that was what drove me to continue the process. I journaled, I wrote all the time. I would just sit there, meditate, cry. I would just be with myself and allow everything to come out as it needs to. It's observe myself, right? After the divorce, I'd drink wine every night, which, look how small I am. I have a smell of it, and I'm like, woo. And I would drink wine every night, and I'd be like, I'm observing myself drinking wine. This is really not so helpful or healthy. But right now, my body is in a self-destructive mode, and I need to listen. So it's observing without necessarily indulging. Does that make sense? Yeah. No, I did. I mean, that's the hard part about depression, is that a lot of people seclude. And when you seclude, you just get in a deeper and deeper rut. And the biggest, the part that helped me the most was having, there was about 2 to 3 people that I really felt I could just, and cry and feel, and not be shy crying, and just let myself be myself. That was a great assistance to not feel bad about being depressed. Because what happens is and I realized what depression is through the process of depression. Depression, I felt, was people don't like to express that they're depressed, right? They don't like to say that they're sad or what their problems are. So all those repressed emotions just get pushed down and pushed down and pushed down and pushed down. And then you just, of course, you have a pile of negative emotion. You're going to be depressed. But if you start saying one, I'm not happy. So if you start to express those things, then they don't come into your body and hold you down. They don't anchor you. They actually just become released. But in a healthy way if you're able to express it. I mean, I did have an alternative therapist the first year that I got divorced, and her process was very much just me, expressing myself. It was not so much of method, psychology, which I appreciated. And then after that, I didn't feel like I had needed her anymore. But if you need professional help, I would say definitely go out and seek somebody who might be able to help. As long as, you know, do your research, make sure they're referred and everything's good, because there's horror stories, you know. But yeah, it's one of those things that talking to somebody is extremely important. Just letting it out and not feeling bad that that's how you feel, because if you do, what are you doing? You're attaching yourself to that emotion, which means you think you are that person, which is just the ego. The pure self doesn't have depression. It just is. But the ego is what feels up, what feels down, right? It has that whole roller coaster feeling. And it attaches. When you are attached to something, you are in ego mode, right? When you can let go, you're in the pure self mode. And so a lot of times we get stuck in depression, and then it just gets worse and worse and worse because we're so attached to that feeling. And we actually, the scary part is that we are scared of the unknown. We fear the unknown. So if we're fearful of the unknown, we're not going to let go of depression, because depression, even though it sucks, is comfort. Does that make sense? Have we all kind of felt that, which totally sucks too, you know? It's really, what sucks is we are really self-destructing. Like, we are doing this to ourselves only because we're stuck here.
For Madison Avenue exploits our fears. I mean, advertising is pure, I'm either in or out, I'm either pretty or ugly, or whatever.
But that's if you accept that. You have to say, you know what, I agree, I'm ugly. They are conforming, society conforms what they think is pretty only because it's going to make them more money. The more they make you feel like crap, the more you're going to buy the creams, the more you're going to do Botox, the more you're going to do all that stupid stuff. But the more you accept yourself for who you are and just let yourself be and say, you know what, I don't look at magazines. You know, I don't look at that stuff only because I know that it's meant to be pushing that, and it only depresses me because I know people believe it and they become anorexic, and you know, it's really sad and it's really sick. But if you allow it, if you accept it as a reality, then you're in ego mode and you're allowing them to define your life.
You have
Which
to
is
accept
BS.
responsibility for it.
Yeah, the whole book is like,
Right.
you gotta take responsibility for your actions. Sorry. You can't blame anybody for anything, because everything that happens to you is your fault. But in like a great way, because that means you can change it, right? Like if we're a victim, if we're constantly a victim, we're just gonna be like slaves and we're just gonna feel imprisoned. But if you say, you know what, let go of those prison wrist guards, then you can just be like, okay, if I got hit by a car, it's my fault. Right? It was my karma to get hit by a car, and I need to accept it and take the necessary actions. Right? I mean, I know it's kind of weird to accept it like that, but it's one of those things that absolutely you need to take responsibility. And the more that you give in to societal, I mean, this whole book, this is why, you know, when I first wrote it, I was like, I don't know if it's going to go mainstream, because this is a little bit too much for people, and I don't know if they're ready for it. I actually wrote a blog about choose stress, because even though people want to choose peace, they actually choose stress instead of choose peace. But that's because they're unconscious to it, right? They don't realize that they're just choosing, and they want to be comfortable in that stress. They know what it is to feel stressed. We don't know what it is to be constantly at peace, right? Like right now I said, oh, you know what? From this point forward, you guys get to be constantly at peace. Do you know what that would feel like? Well, hopefully we can, right? And it's even when we're not at peace, we're at peace that we're not at peace. Does that make sense? I mean, that's how the trick goes. This is how the whole process is. And so the 15th step of the book, which is the last step, is basically practicing the process. You're just going to keep practicing, right? I know it sounds like, oh, there's a destination, right? There's no destination here, right? Except constantly choosing peace. And the main question, actually this is what sparked part of this whole transformation for me too, was I was at Romanico's in the chocolate cafe after I got divorced with two friends. One of them is here, Heidi. And my other friend, sorry Heidi, not you. My other friend said to me, you know, I was supposed to be going to Rosh Hashanah dinner, and I really didn't want to go. I didn't want to have to deal with family. I was like, you know what, I don't want to have to deal with it. You know, my ex-husband, obviously, we're divorced, whatever. And my other friend asked me, well, what will maintain your peace? I was like, what a brilliant question. I'm like, not going. That's simple as that. My peace would be not going to Rosh Hashanah dinner. And she's like, well, then that's your answer. I was like, but my mom is going to want me to go, and she, you know, the whole family thing, whatever. But I called, and I was like, all right, expecting that was going to happen. And I called, I first talked to my dad, and my dad was like, do whatever you need to do. It's perfectly fine. You have to take care of yourself. I was like, oh, good. one down, next one. I'm like, Mom, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna go. She's like, okay, well, you know. And so I know that she wanted me to be there, and it's okay, but I needed to make a decision for myself, regardless of pleasing her. And that's a big one, right? People pleasing, ego, I want to be accepted, I want to feel loved, right? And it's so subtle, but if you really start to walk the path, you'll start to see how much of what you do is unfortunately not driven by your own choices, but by what you think other people want you to do. And that will you'll never have peace there, because you're going to be like, well, do they want this? Or do they want this? And then the irony of it is they're also doing the same thing. So no one's happy, right? So if you start at least doing it for yourself, you'll inspire other people to do it as well. And that's what I've hopefully been able to help other people do. And hopefully you guys as well. But do we have any questions? Yeah.
How long was the process of like writing the book? How long? I don't know if you answered that already.
No, I didn't. What's funny is the actual first writing through it was very fast. Like within a month, I had written the book. Like in terms of the first draft of it, because it just came out of me. I mean, if you read it, it's very conversational. It's not these crazy terminologies. You know, it's meant to be like, let me hold your hand. We can do this together. You know, it's meant to be that way. Obviously, from that point, and then the revisions, and then the printing and the publishing and everything, that took like 2 years. But the first write through was very fast. So. And that was the first time I wrote a book, so I hadn't written a book before, so it was like, okay.
What about the process, going from the ego to the pure self? How long did that take?
Right.
Oh, I'm still in it. Are you kidding? No. Are you kidding? Not to be like, ooh, right? No. Huh?
Free floating.
Yeah. I'd be like, well, everybody, just let's pray. No. No, it's a constant process. I'm a lot more at peace. Actually, what's really funny is I was talking about this with somebody the other day, that I used to be a very angry person, and I actually developed TMJ from anger. I clenched and I remember the exact moment. I was in college, and I was very mad at my ex-boyfriend, and I was leaning up against a bar. I was clenching my teeth so much that all of a sudden, snap, it popped out. Yeah, I know, all the women go, all the guys are like, whatever. But it hurt so much that I was like, in agony. I'm like, wow. But my TMJ continued to progress throughout the next couple of years, and now, even though it still clicks, I don't feel the pain because I'm not angry anymore. Like that, I'm no longer an angry person. So it doesn't continue to aggravate. Does that make sense? So even though it's still there because